Nutrition advice for women is often oversimplified. Eat less, move more, stay consistent. But women's bodies don't operate on a fixed formula. Welcome. I'm Tierra Duncan, and this channel is all about women's health, from hormones and nutrition to fitness and stress. Real science, real conversations, and tools to help you thrive. Today, I'm joined by Colleen Cross, certified nutrition coach and menopause coaching specialist, to talk about how women's nutrition needs evolve and why underfueling is still far more common than most realize. Hi, Colleen. Welcome.
Hi.
Glad to have you. So, Colleen, many women are doing everything they've been told is healthy, eating clean, training consistently, staying disciplined, but they still feel exhausted or stuck. Why is this so common?
Gosh, well, for starters, um, I think women are constantly trying to do the most when in reality, doing less is often actually more. It's kind of like that saying, fast is slow, slow is fast. But I think what the problem is, we're trying to do all of these things and we're actually having, we're trying to do the things that we could do when we were in our 20s. And we're actually having this shift in our bodies, which doesn't allow us to maybe handle all of those things. So I really think it comes down to trying to do too many things when our bodies cannot necessarily handle all of those things like they once were able to do.
Yeah, that makes me think of being 40 and managing the, motherhood and a full-time job and trying to stay fit and coaching and all these things. Whereas, my 20s, girl, I was fancy free, right? Not having all those responsibilities. So, what are some of the more damaging myths around nutrition that you hear from women when it comes to like eating less or having a lot of control or being disciplined?
Yeah, so believe it or not, these myths are still floating around. And I mean, I can't tell you how many people still come to us in the coaching sphere and they're like, low carb is the only thing that works for me. Low fat
Mm.
is the only thing that works for me. Fasting is the only way I can do this. Skipping meals, skipping breakfast. We still have people that believe 1,200 calories is how many calories they should eat for the end of time. Like they think that's a forever thing when that's not even enough to feed to for your toddlers. Um, so those are probably the most damaging ones, like just old beliefs that are still sticking around. And I think the problem is a lot of people are fearful to try something different too because they know this worked for them before, but it's not working so much for them any and now, but they don't really kind of know where to go next. And another thing I think that it's not as much nutrition related, but as far as like training goes, that is still floating around is women believing that lifting is going to make them bulky. Like we still hear this
Mm.
all the time
Sure,
coming in
sure.
to the coach in the coaching world. People are terrified to lift weights because they think they're going to be bulky. Yet they come to us and they're like, "Hey, we want to have that toned look." Well, that toned look you want comes with making muscle.
Sure.
And if getting bulky was that easy, we'd all be in a lot
Jacked.
better place.
Yeah, yeah. Super slow. Yeah, I when it comes to the myths specifically about eating less or being so calorie restrictive or no low carb, no carb, no fat, whatever. I know a lot of those are rooted in like bad science,
Mhm,
bad data that was initially published. And also it does work in a very short time frame. Like,
mhm,
yes, if you starve yourself, you will lose weight, right?
sure,
Um, but what's the quality of that weight? Is it muscle mass that you lost or is
mhm.
it fat loss? And when you go to refeed or when you go to try to eat a normal healthy diet, you're kind of stuck at, or sometimes you go all the way back to step one or even worse, right? There's
Mhm.
like metabolic impacts to starving yourself or really depleting in like the macronutrients.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a big to speak on that a little bit, I think that's a big missing piece in the coaching industry too, is, everybody can lose weight. Like you said, it works for a temporary amount of time. But the missing piece and the hardest piece is that maintenance piece. And it's different than a deficit or a diet phase. Like, it looks totally different. And that's the piece that people don't know how to do. And it's the hardest piece. And it's boring. Like, because, the maintenance phase, like, you're not like chasing anything specific. Like, you're trying to maintain, and because it's kind of boring, people don't really take it seriously. But in reality, it's the most important, where you spend the biggest chunk of your life. It should be at this maintenance phase. And it's the piece that people don't know how to do, and the piece that isn't taught.
So when it comes, excuse me, when it comes to chronically undereating, how does that manifest in some of the clients that you have, and kind of what are the signs and symptoms that show up?
So it can show up a lot of different ways. And I think a lot of the ways that it shows up, people think it's kind of like normal. It can show up in poor sleep. It can show up in hair loss, changes in hair. It can show up just if somebody's feeling cold all the time. Constipation can be a big one.
Mm,
Frequent injury, frequent illness, poor mood, low libido, something that's not talked about enough and should be talked about more. Irregular cycles, missed cycles, a downregulated thyroid, poor recovery from workouts, or not able to progress in their training or make muscle, inflammation, and can show up as loss of hunger. Like, this is a really big one, because people come to us, and a lot of people are like really proud of, they're like, well, I'm just not hungry. Like, it's great, I'm not hungry. When in reality, like, that's a big signal that something is not working properly in your body, because there's that hunger, they are hormones. And if we're not feeling hunger, then something
yeah,
is awry
hunger,
in there.
it's a survival mechanism, right? Like,
Yeah.
you should be hungry.
Yes.
It's a
I
part,
mean,
it's built into our body to make
mhm,
sure that we continue to operate and survive. Yeah.
absolutely. And a lot of people come to us and they're like, I'm not hungry. I'm like, all right, well, the first thing was, we're going to look for that hunger. And the way to do it
Mhm.
is to increase your intake, typically. Like, we want you to wake up hungry. We want you to be hungry at the next meal, ultimately. So hunger signals is a big one. And even just like wild cravings can be a big sign of, this
Nutrient
under,
deficiency?
yeah, nutrient
Yeah,
deficiency. I even have like two recent coaching clients that came to me, and one girl has been with me for a while, and all of a sudden she's like, I've just been like craving all this stuff in the afternoon, all these like ultra processed foods and whatnot. So I look at her log, and she does have a history of, not wanting to consume a lot of carbs at breakfast. I think people tend to be like calorie savers. They want to save everything. And her carb intake had really dropped earlier in the day, breakfast and lunch. I'm like, your body is talking to you. Like, it's saying like, hey, I need something. And the reason you're craving all those ultra processed foods is because it's looking for quick fuel, because you didn't fuel it earlier in the day. So, those cravings, the hunger signals, the poor sleep. And I think a lot of the time these things are missed is because people think it's like normal. I mean, I thought it was normal. I had a
sure.
season of life where I slept terribly, and I thought that was just me. Like, I was like, I'm just a terrible sleeper. I'm going to accept it. I'll wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, can't go back to sleep. I'm going to go make banana bread. I'll go to the gym. Like, I thought it was a normal thing. And I think people think it's normal. And then the other problem is, like, a lot of times we don't know what's going on. For example, like the downregulated thyroid. The only way we know that, unless you really know the symptoms to look for, is through labs. And then a lot of people don't know how to read their labs. And then a lot of times people get, their provider will tell them everything's normal, within normal range, when maybe it's not necessarily the optimal range. But
Right.
then it comes to, I think a lot of times that the signs are missed because it's just a lack of education. I think people don't know. They don't know what to look for. And there's this missing piece of information, like, hey, we should be looking for these signs and signals to make sure that we are fueling appropriately.
Yeah, it's so interesting you mention all these things, because within my book, I cycle health, right? Menstruation and education around our sex hormones,
Mhm.
estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, um, it is sorely missed. And it goes into that disconnect, right? And also the normalization of not feeling good, right?
Mhm.
The missed periods, or the painful periods, or the insomnia, the constipation, the diarrhea, the bloating, and you're just like, oh, that's just my period. That's just how I should feel. Like, no, dog, you don't, you can actually feel amazing And something that a lot of people, at least that I've run into with previous nutrition coaching, is they don't understand that like your brain loves carbs, right?
Mm.
Like glucose, and it's one of the primary sources, right? To kind of fuel your brain. And so, people are like, I'm so foggy. And I'm like, what did you eat today? And there's like no carbs. I'm like, well, yeah,
You're
you should
fine.
probably, yeah. Or that, everyone hears about protein. So now
Mm.
you've got protein and everything. But I'm like, do you really need to eat protein chips? Or could we just
Right.
like eat some chicken? Right? Yeah, it's the myths and the disconnect from the body seem to be kind of the biggest hurdles for a lot of women.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think a big piece of it is fear. Like,
Mm.
there's a lot of fear behind it. And, in my coaching process or our coaching process, like our ultimate goal is for women not to fear food and to know what food freedom feels like, even fitness freedom.
Mm.
But I think there's just a lot of fear and just not giving it enough time to like try it. Like, let's just try it and see what it feels like. And having that support from somebody that being like, hey, this is what we're going to do this week. We're going to try this and see how you feel.
Yeah, when it comes to, well, this used to work for me,
Mhm.
and kind of fighting that battle, what's usually happening, right? We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but kind of what are the transitions or what are the things usually happening where that's no longer working, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's that temporary aspect or just life.
Yeah, so we did talk about this a little bit earlier on, and I'm excited to kind of chat about it a little bit more. But so we hear this all the time. This used to work for me. It's not working for me anymore. Okay, well, let's find the thing that's working for you. But let's first start by understanding like the body that you have now is different than the body you had in your 20s. And what we mean by that is, it could be you're in a various different stages of life. You could be a new mother, you could be postpartum, you could be perimenopause, you could be menopause, and we're having this hormonal shift. And a lot of people still don't understand what's happening in that hormonal shift. Even that like postpartum is kind of like a mini menopause. Like it's like a little glimpse
Sure,
of it's,
sure, yeah.
so we have these different changes in life. Our hormones are changing. So we're in this different body and our bodies can't, back to the stressors, like our bodies can't handle stressors like they could when we were in our 20s. So like in our 20s, we could maybe handle stressors on a level of like 8 or 9. And now we can only handle at like a 5. And when I say stressors, I don't mean just, workload and being a mom and being a wife and being a caretaker and or maybe being an empty nester, but there's, stressors from training, stressors from underfueling, stressors from not
Not
getting enough
sleeping.
sleep. Like those are all stressors too. So we have to get a little bit more tactical in the way that we support our bodies because we can't handle the same amount of stressors because we don't necessarily have those hormones. Like say we are in the perimenopause menopause era and we have this drop in sex hormones. Those hormones used to act as like a buffer and would like help us handle a lot of those things and do a lot of the signaling for us. And now we have to be a little bit more tactical because we don't have as much help internally there.
Yeah, and also I just, when you've got a decade of chronic stress or a decade of inflammation in the body,
Mhm.
right? Like you're now fighting that where you didn't have that before, potentially.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, what does it look like to support the body during these types of transitions? Or even if you're in your 20s right now and you're watching this or listening to this and you're like, "Yeah, but I feel like crap now."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what do we do to support when we're not feeling great?
Yeah. And I encourage anybody in their 20s to, start
The
making
sooner
this
the better,
change.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the sooner we can because it gets harder as we get
Yeah.
older. But first things first, like giving our body enough intake since we've talked largely about, inadequate fuel intake. So making sure we're getting enough intake, but also making sure we're getting enough of the macronutrient balance. So, we want protein and we want carbs and we want fats. And making sure we're targeting micronutrients. And I'm not saying like things don't have to be perfect when we're doing this
Mhm.
whole thing. And trying to aim for perfection is just going to send you down a bad road. But
Spiral.
yeah, like, which in our coaching practice, we're big on looking at like weekly averages because we don't we're not expecting you to hit things to a T every day, every week, or anything like that. But adequate macronutrient intake, balance, making sure meals are balanced. So making sure we have, the fats and the carbs and protein. Like we're not consuming just all carbs in a meal. This really helps with blood sugar control. Really working on sleep hygiene, consistent bedtime routine, consistent wake time. And again, it doesn't have to be like I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every single day, but like let's not be waking up at 5 a.m. during the week and sleep until 10 a.m. on Saturday. Our bodies really like consistency. Same with like meal timing, trying to get a consistent meal timing in there, making sure we're eating breakfast. People still skip breakfast, or they're loading up on coffee in the morning with no food, and just, that's just a disaster recipe for just making sure we're getting proper rest. And I don't mean just sleep. This can be in the form of making sure we're resting from training. I always have to remind people, like, we're not making muscle during the workout. We're
That's right.
making the muscle when we're
When you
recovering
recover.
from the
Mhm.
workout. And I
Yeah.
think people forget that. They think it's happening while they're working out. I'm like, no, you're actually breaking down your muscle at that point. And then
Yes.
we need to rebuild it. And that happens during recovery and rest. So making sure, our training program is appropriate and allows for appropriate amount of rest is a big one in there. Focusing on high fiber foods, minimizing ultra processed foods, UPF. So food quality plays a big role. And when I say fiber, like I'm talking about like good fiber, not these like low carb wraps that have this mystery processed fiber. Like this, I don't know what's in those things that have 12 grams of fiber.
Cardboard, probably. I mean, it'll move things
um,
along.
So fiber is a really big piece. Let's see, am I missing anything? I know it sounds like a lot of different things that we can work on, but there are also things that we can easily change one or thing here. That implement one thing one week, implement another thing the next week, and slowly make these changes.
Yeah, I find that the people, at least in the past clients that I've worked with, the people that have been the most successful are those that we tackle 1 to 2 things. And then when we've maintained consistency in
Mm-hmm.
those areas, then we add something else. So
Yeah.
it literally might be, hey, Bob, for the next 4 weeks, we eat breakfast
Mm-hmm.
and we go for a walk.
Yep.
That might be it.
Yeah.
But what people don't understand is that could be monumental in how, like, as far as like a change in how you feel and
Mm-hmm.
just how you operate, and then it's a win. So
Yeah.
now you're clocking in 2 wins
Yep.
every day,
And you're
building that confidence.
yeah, you're proving to yourself that you can do it. Like, I did
Yeah.
this, so I can do the next thing. Like, and it can be as simple as like, let's go for a 5-minute walk. And I know, like, 5-minute walk, like, it sounds like, well, what's that going to do? Well, you're committing to yourself. You're
That's
doing it.
right.
You're proving yourself that you can do it, and it's going to trickle into the next thing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
small
baby
small
steps.
wins. Yeah,
Mhm.
small wins, and that's the thing is I maybe going back to some of that myth aspect is I think, people are like, "Oh, it's January 1st. I have to do a whole
Mm,
total life overhaul." And I'm like, "Sure, yes, are these all these things you should do, but like are you going to do them?" That's the real question. If you can't commit to making these big changes, that's totally okay. And
mhm.
it's good to have steps to, get there slowly. So, Colleen, if you could tell women just like one thing to reframe about nutrition, or just thinking about food in general, what would it be?
Let's stop being calorie avoiders and instead be nutrient seekers. Like, that would be my biggest
Ooh, that's great. That's a great line.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of thinking about food as something that's going to make you gain weight or something to be a problem, it's really like, hey, this is going to fuel my muscles, my brain, make me feel good in my body. And the more nutrients I can give it, the better I'm going to operate, the
Yeah.
better worker I'm going to be, friend, mom, ex-wife, XYZ. Um, yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Where can women find you, or
Yeah.
men too?
Yeah, we work with both women and men.
Yeah,
I will say majority of the people that we work with are women, and we do specialize in the menopause era of life.
amazing.
Yeah, because again, the education out there for that piece is, it's people are confused.
It's
But in
confusing.
any event, you can find us at uncommonmethod.com, or our Instagram is un.common.method. Either one of them will guide you to an application to work with us, and you can book a call with us. It's a free consultation call where we can talk about anything that you might need help with, to make sure we're a good fit before we go through the coaching process. So either of those places you can find us.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you guys are focused on fueling the body, making women feel kind of empowered with that education piece,
Mm.
right? That they're learning as they're getting the coaching from you. It's not just like, here's some macros. No, they're really learning about their life transition and
Yeah.
how to best support that. So make sure to follow Colleen and the Uncommon Method on all the platforms. We'll list them, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.